USC. I met Donovan because he was getting, you don't remember this, but I do. He was getting awarded, he was in grad school and getting awarded into the Academic Honor Society, Beta Gamma Sigma. Am I right?
Yeah.
And we were in line. I didn't know him. We were in line, and I was an undergrad getting an award, waiting in line. And we were the only black kids, and he was, we're the only black people in line. We met because we had worked hard in classroom. And by the way, I don't care what you did in high school or junior high or elementary school, or even what you did your first 2 years at San Marcos College or wherever you're at. What I care about is what you do next. Because you can change, you're still young kids. And I say kids. But you're still young. You can do whatever you want. It's a matter of how you position yourself and how hard you work and how in the priorities that you set. When I was on my third year at USC in the marching band playing alto sax, my first plane trip was going to Notre Dame to play football, and I'm in the band with, they had chartered a big old plane. I literally, I imagine, have most of you been on a plane? Someone who hasn't been on a plane? You wouldn't admit it. Okay, that's okay. I didn't either. What I'm trying to say is, I'm the only one looking out the window. I'm the only one, the wings flapping, those things, the turbulence. I'm the only one. The reason I use this example is I'd never been on a plane. We had a big family. We were kind of middle class, but kind of lower middle class. Everybody has been on a plane now, for the most part. Everybody's got a cell phone now. No, everyone doesn't. Everyone hasn't been on a plane. What I'm saying is, the way you overcome is you become smarter. You work harder. You take the extra step. Before what's his name connected with me on LinkedIn, I connected with him on LinkedIn. I connected with Maisha. Why? Because even if you do a lot of things in your career, you're still looking for opportunities to partner with other good, smart people, because the market continues to change. So continuous learning is one of those 4 F's as you build your foundation. All right, so a couple things here. This is all finance. When Disney bought ABC, Disney bought Pixar, and Disney bought a company called Digicent. I happen to be on a team that was, when a company gets bought, you integrate that company. And that's the payroll, that's the technology. Have you thought about this? The email systems, the global, the products. This was a fascinating job that if I had not built my foundation right, I would have never even known what the heck to do. And so where I'm getting at is, when I was in grad school, I never expected to do anything like this. What I'm getting at is, you have blind spots all over. We all have blind spots. The way that you overcome blind spots is just by being resourceful and doing the kinds of things that others won't do, and then you'll put yourself in positions to get exposed to things. Me not going on a flight, it didn't matter when I was traveling to 100 markets launching Blu-ray discs. Didn't matter. What mattered is how I got there, and the teams that we built, and the journey of doing something that was worthy for an organization. All right, so I'm going to stop it there, but I think that it's critical whether you want to be in front of the camera. Some people want to be in front of the camera. Some want to be behind the camera making content. Other people want to be the attorneys, and that's great business to be in. You want to be in HR, you want to be in business development, you want to do in distribution. There's a lot of great, wonderfully experiential roles in media and entertainment and technology. But you're going to have blind spots. You're going to have to go in and find those, because it's not like you say, well, I drive for FedEx. A lot of the jobs that are really great paying and great, wonderful jobs, you won't know exist until you get into those roles, until you get into the internship. And then you say, well, I'm here for sales. But wait a minute, cybersecurity? Oh, that's interesting. Who's majoring in cybersecurity? Not many people. But some of the right people are. So be thinking about these things. All right. I'm going to take a couple questions. I'm going to show you a couple pieces of content, because I think that only for relevancy purposes. But what questions do you have? I know I've been kind of rushing, because we want to get, some of this stuff should be starters for you, like when you're just having a piece of a donut. And you say, oh wait, our job is to make you a little hungry and make you a little thirsty for what's next in your life. Give me a couple of questions and then I'll show a couple things that are short. Go ahead.
How do you become a high-ranking officer how do you become a high-ranking position in AT&T?
Build your foundation. Do well at any job you take within the organization. Keep learning. How I became a producer is I was a director at Disney, and I worked a lot on use cases for, I was working on merger stuff, like really big things, but I was thinking if I'm going to stay in the business of entertainment, I don't know how we create even our own products. I'm finance based, so I'm doing alliance, I'm doing some cool stuff, but it's the kind of the boring stuff of entertainment. And then someone said, well, why don't you learn how the films are greenlit, how they're funded, how they're marketed? Why don't you learn how they're shot? I took 2 classes at UCLA. I'm a USC guy. I took 2 classes at UCLA Extension. Met like 20 writers. Where's my writer? Met like 20 writers, a couple directors. 3 years later, I got a show on ABC Family while I kept my day job, because the business of entertainment is really important to me. My point is learning about the business, learning what I'm telling you about what's next in the business, what are the pitfalls of the business, taking responsibility and having accountability. Those are the things that make you high. You don't need to ask that question. What you need to do is have a few good mentors around you and let them guide you. Every 3 years you should have a plan, a rolling plan about what's next in your career. My master's degree, all it did was give me a reason to be able to quit. If I wasn't growing in an organization, I could leave and not be punished. If you don't have any education, you can't leave an organization because you just got to keep growing up in it. But if Disney's treating me well, I'll be at Disney. If Sony's treating me well, I'll be at Sony. But it gives you the ability, and in this, the media entertainment and the technology business, there's a lot of moving around because technology is so interwoven. Sometimes it makes you valuable to be around different organizations.
What are some of the prioritized skill sets these guys need to really focus on to get better at competing for this Silicon Beach tech economy?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because here's what I would say, it's just if supply and demand, go back to physician. It's hard to become a physician, so they make a lot of money. Skill sets that are hard to get, typically you're in more demand for. Now there's a lot of writers, but there's not a lot of good writers. But you have to cut through a lot to get to be one of those writers. There's not a lot of people in data science and artificial intelligence in some of these areas. A lot of people that don't want to do the math to become the CPA, when the CPA could be the best thing that ever happened to you, to get the HR certification, right? So my point is that's why mentoring is important. There's a lot of people that say, well, what are you majoring in? Sales. No, because anyone can sell. You can learn to sell. Major in stuff that is substantive if you can. If you can major in finance, accounting, discipline marketing, operations, like some of these I know are boring. When I got to Disney, I was amazed how many senior people that were running businesses were attorneys. They had gone to law school. I'll get you one second. They'd gone to law school. And they're not practicing law, they're running a business. So don't be shy. The other thing that I was going to say to him as well is global. I kind of got lost, but Blu-ray was wonderful for me because it was my first global job. When you're pulling up in China, in Beijing to do business, and you're pulling up in India, and then I'm looking around, I still look out the window a lot, but still I'm much better flying these days. But where I'm getting at is, when you're pulling up to do business, and it's a real substantive business with a great brand underneath you and a good team, it's amazing the opportunities you get and the confidence you get and how smart you get. When you start learning Japanese culture versus Taiwanese culture, when you start learning the difference between how Europeans do business and not. My point to you is, don't be afraid to step out, especially for us. Because we're so busy trying to get ahead in America, you're kind of forgetting that, like BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, BBC sells their content, each show is sold in 210 countries around the world. So am I telling you need to know 210 countries? No. I'm telling you need to know something about the world. And so taking a stint in China for a year, or going to India for a year, or doing a project for 6 months somewhere, I did it because I hadn't traveled. A lot of people that in these private schools growing up, they're off in Singapore on travel. They're already in Africa doing safari. Well, most of us don't get to do that. Your way to make up for it is to be nosy and curious and go for it on your own and talk to people that will help you get there. Because once you get there, it don't matter. It doesn't matter how you learn to drive. What matters is, do you have a license? Think about that for a minute. Doesn't matter how you became a scientist. I can't do math. I can't do this. I'm studying with the powers cut off. What matters is, can you get it done? If you can get it done, there'll be rewards for you on the other side. And I think that's, if you ask me about everything, going last is difficult because, we have a lot to say, and I'm the last speaker. But I want you to know that this is a start for you if you want it to be. Let me just say one more thing. Margins in business are critical. You know what a margin is? How much money that company makes. Every industry has a margin. So meaning, it's not surprising that healthcare, that technology, that finance, typically are the highest margins of any industries. Meaning, if the companies are all making money, they tend to take care of their employees. They tend to educate and develop their employees better. And all of them tend to have a better life just in the ecosystem. Media and entertainment, be careful because it's hit and miss. There's a lot of starving actors, and there's a lot of very wealthy actresses. There's a lot of writers that aren't working, and then there's other ones that are just blown up. The guy that did a show called I worked with it. It was online. Cherry. He did Desperate Housewives. Remember? No, you guys are young, but all the old people are like, yeah, Desperate Housewives. Okay, Desperate Housewives. This guy wrote that in the back of his car. He wrote it in the back of his car, and it became one of the hit shows. And he's like, so he didn't look